Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Treasurer. The latest national accounts confirm that Australia is in an entrenched per capita recession or a family recession. At the same time, disposable income per person, living standards, have collapsed by 7.5% under Labor. Right now, population growth is the only thing left driving the economy. Treasurer, why are hard-working families paying the price for this government's failed economic management?
Call to the order. Give the call to the Treasurer.
Annual questions.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. To those of you watching at home who thought that the Shadow Treasurer had been replaced, the good news, particularly for me, is that he hasn't. The member for Hume has survived the reshuffle on those opposite, not that you would know, Mr Speaker. That is the second question I've got in about 7 months, and so I'm pleased for the opportunity to be able to answer it. The Shadow Treasurer asked me about economic management, and I am absolutely delighted to get a question from him about economic management, because it gives me the opportunity to explain to him and to the House and to the country the progress that has been made in cleaning up the mess that he and his colleagues on the front bench over there left behind. If we take, for example, real wages, Mr Speaker, real wages are growing again in our economy. They were going backwards 3.4% when we came to office, and now they're growing again ahead of schedule. When we came to office, Mr Speaker, quarterly inflation was 3 times higher than it is now. It's now a third of what those opposite left behind, Mr Speaker. When it comes to productivity, we've had a couple of welcome quarters of productivity growth in the national accounts that the Shadow Treasurer references, Mr Speaker.
Order.
And so the point is, Mr Speaker, the point is, I'm asked about living standards. If those opposite really cared about living standards in our country and in our communities, they would have voted for electricity bill relief.
The member for Grey.
If they really cared about cost of living pressures in our community, they'd support our efforts to get wages moving again. If they really cared about cost of living pressures in our communities, Mr Speaker, they'd support our efforts to clean up the mess that they made of the budget. When we came to office, Mr Speaker, there was a deficit of $78 billion. By the end of our first year in office, that had become a $22 billion surplus. Mr Speaker, that $100 billion turnaround is the biggest nominal turnaround in the budget in the history of the Commonwealth, Mr Speaker. And it shows that when we came to office, when the Shadow Treasurer was busily trying to hide price rises in the economy and the electricity market, as the Energy Minister said a moment ago, when he was one of the worst-performing ministers in one of the worst governments since Federation, he handed to us, and they handed to us, real wages going backwards, inflation absolutely galloping, there was debt and deficit as far as the eye can see. We were paying far too much to service the debt that they left behind, the $1 trillion of Liberal debt. Now, we are under no illusions, Mr Speaker, about the challenges in the economy. We know our economy is slowing. I said that when the national accounts came out. I also pointed out in per capita terms that it happened on 6 different occasions under those opposite, that the economy went backwards in per capita terms.
Order.
It happened in 6 different occasions, Mr Speaker. He really should understand that before he asks a question like that. I'll see him in 7 months.